before we go there, one question. Who has heard of the Maharal? Unbelievable. Who has heard of Azaria di Rossi? That is perfect. So thank you so much for coming. We'll only speak of Azaria di Rossi because the Maharal, vice versa. Okay, let it hang. Let me go somewhere else. In the Gemara, and we'll set here. In Masechet Menachot, on Daf Tzadi Tet Amud Bet, that's 99b. The Gemara has a very interesting little vignette. And this should set the stage for this lecture. It will connect it to last week's a little bit, and maybe from here on we can refer to it. So the Gemara says, Sha'al, Misha'al, Ben Dama. So we have a person's name. Ben Dama posed the following question. Who was he? Before we're told who he's asking the question to, we need ID. He's Ben Achoto Shel Rabbi Ishmael. Famous Rabbi Ishmael is, if it's Ben Achoto Shel Rabbi Ishmael,
I'm thinking his nephew.
It's his nephew. Well, Ben Dama is a he. So what does Ben Dama do? Who is he asking, since he is related to Rabbi Ishmael? His uncle, Rabbi Ishmael. And he says to him, Kagon Ani, someone like I, who obviously super smart, because he says, Shit, Lamadati Kol HaTorah Kula. I learned the entire Torah. I graduated, I learned the entire Torah. The question I'm asking, Mahu Lilmod Chochmat Yivanit. I want to now study Greek wisdom, Greek philosophy, Greek science. I've finished Torah. That thing is over. Now you'll tell me Torah has no end, but let's get real superficially. You can read and learn all the Bab Yerushalmi. People have done it. So Kara Allah Mikra Hazeh, his uncle, instead of saying yes, no, maybe, let me think about it, gave him a pasuk. This is how we always answer, Psukim. What does the pasuk say? So the pasuk is a pasuk in Sefer Yeshua, literally at the beginning of Yeshua, Parak Aleph pasuk Chet, I believe it is, says to him, Lo Yamish Sefer HaTorah Yamish Sefer HaTorah Hazeh Mipicha Vehigita Bo Yomam V'Layla. What does Hashem tell Yeshua? Do not let go of the Sefer Torah ever from your mouth, and you should meditate in it when Yomam V'Layla. Say, go out, Ubaduk Sha'ah, find the time period, She'enu Lo Min Hayom V'Lo Min Halayla. Find the time. You have to learn Torah day and night. So go and search for a time period which is neither day nor night, and then you can learn Chochmat Yivani. End of the story. Okay, what did he tell him? So study of Torah is endless. Do not waste it. You think you finished it? You haven't finished it.
That's when all Torah was discovered.
No. It was around. Rabbi Ishmael is on the 80-30, right? Yeshua. So Yeshua was a little bit
He also
simpler.
told him something else.
Yes.
He told him there's never a time to learn Greek thought.
Right. Okay, let the story end. Fast forward to what we spoke of last week, and let's pick it up from there. And I mentioned it slightly, but now let's make a deal out of it. You all remember the Rambam wrote his Moreh Nevuchim. The Moreh Nevuchim used Aristotelian philosophy. The Rambam fell in love with Aristotle. He disagreed with him on many points, but it's almost like he said, had Aristotle been Jewish, he could have been an ugly. Okay. The book was written, if you remember, in Judeo-Arabic. It's translated, and it comes into Europe. No one in Europe knew Judeo-Arabic except the Jews of Spain. They translate the book, like we said, and suddenly it comes to France. Could you imagine the grandchildren of Rashi, or the great-grandchildren of Rashi, looking at a book in Hebrew written by a great rabbi, Moshe ben Maimonides, who suddenly starts quoting Aristotle and saying, yes, on this point Aristotle is correct, and on this point Aristotle is correct. All right, on this point Aristotle got it wrong. On this point he got it right. Do I need Aristotle to confirm my belief? I have to take my system and twist it into Aristotle? Mi hu zeh ve'ezeh hu ha'ish hahu, ha'goy ha'gadol hazeh, chacham Aristotle. What do I care? And suddenly, many great rabbis said, this book is just crossing the line. And therefore, what should we do with this book? Now, no one impugned, and this is the beauty of the ancient world of the medieval time period. No one ever, you study carefully, when you had a machloket with someone, you disagreed with his work, you never said anything about the person. Okay, that world changed. Well, lo and behold, the Rambam is okay, but what he wrote in that book is an issue. Therefore, we should take this book and maybe put it in favor. And of course, like any good Jewish issue, we have a machloket. So remember, like I said to you last time, there were Maimonists and anti-Maimonists. At the end of the day, everyone got involved in this machloket. But in 1232, the Dominican friars took the Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim and the beginning of his Mishneh Torah, Sefer Hamada, and set it on fire. Now, what was the issue? The issue is Ben Dama's question: can I study Chokhmat Yivanit? There, it was like, okay, figure out a time period. But someone went ahead, crossed that line, studied Chokhmat Yivanit, kashered it, so to say, and put it out there in his Moreh Nevuchim. That is just not the way to do it. Or, other Chachamim say, that's beautiful. That's great. Hashem wants us to look at ideas. We're not afraid of secular knowledge in the world. We're not afraid of science. If there's a challenge to Torah, we have to figure out a way that science and Torah works. Where Chokhmat Yivanit, if it works on this point, great. And if it doesn't, then take Chokhmat Yivanit and throw it out. But there is Chachma B'Goyim, the Gemara says. So take the wisdom of the non-Jews and figure it out. Or no, don't take it. In 1232, when the books of the Rambam were burned, the Ramban, who was still a young man, got involved in this machloket, and the Ramban totally disagreed with the Rambam on these issues. But he said in a number, actually in 6 letters, very poignant, touchy letters, he said, Lo zu haderech. We don't do these things. The Rambam was a great person. You want to disagree with him? Disagree with him. But don't take books and burn them. In fact, the story got a little bit ugly if you remember the details. Someone went to the Dominican friars and said, you guys are burning your own Christian heretical books. Well, could you help us burn our own heretical books? Like, okay, burn the book in your backyard and don't make a big deal. Now going to Dominican friars and asking them to do that maybe was the line that was crossed. But when, let's say 2 years went by, 3 years went by, what was the final resolution of that entire machloket? Who resolved it? The answer is nobody. It was left. Okay, we crossed the line, everyone went back to work, and basically almost another 100 years almost went by. When someone studying this entire issue says, wait a second, that machloket was never resolved. So who's right? Is the Rambam right, or the other rabbis right? What do we do with the secular knowledge? What do we do with Greek wisdom? Is it allowed or not allowed? And if you remember, that started a whole different machloket. And that machloket did not burn the works of the Rambam, but that machloket said, do not study the Rambam unless you have reached the age of 25. At that point, you could read it. The book was not for anyone under the age of 25. The only exception was if you were studying medicine, then you could read it even under the age of 25. Okay, was that a resolution? No, we let it go. Okay, lecture is over. Thank you very much for coming. And since no one heard of Azari Rossi, I don't want to break that to you and expose you to someone you haven't heard of before. So, look at your handout for a second. There you have the Maral, and there you have Azari Rossi. So let me tell you a little bit. You tell me, who should go first? The Maral or Azari Rossi? Would you rather hear something you know slightly of or totally, or nobody cares?
Yes, good.
All the time, so
So we should start with number
it's okay, let's start with tomorrow. Thank you for resolving the issue. I like a decisive person. So let me tell you about tomorrow. To use the word giant, the Maral is not an exception. The Maral was roughly, because we're not 100% sure, but born around 1512, dies in 1609, so he lives to quite an amazing age. The Maral was born in a city called Poznan. His uncle already had been a great Rav in that part of the world, in Moravia. And the Maral gets his amazing education as a child, and at some point, and both Azari de Rossi, they become like those geniuses where they're not learning with anyone anymore. You know, Chavruta works, but if your speed is so much faster, if your concentration and understanding is just ahead of the other person, they slow you down. So you begin to study totally your own stuff. And the Maral, after the age of 13, begins to learn literally everything by himself. I'm not even sure he intended to become a rabbi, and eventually the Maral becomes literally the chief rabbi of Poland. First he's in the town of Nikolsburg. From Nikolsburg he moves to Prague. To this day, if you've been to Prague, you might have visited his kever. It's still like, to this day, hundreds of people go and pray there, Jews and non-Jews, because of the stories that are told about the miracles of just coming to his kever and davening. But the Maral begins to look at what was the most common learning that was going on at the time, and writes a commentary to a commentary. Anybody know what I'm referring to? The Maral sat down and wrote a work called with Yehuda Leib. That's why you might see his name in English spelled Yehuda Loew, which is the German word for a lion. So is Yehuda Leib, and Leib is what they basically called him. Morenu, that's how we get to Maral. You know, it's Yehuda was his name, but that's not what they called him. They called him Leib. And he looks at Rashi. Rashi's a commentary. But now everyone was learning Rashi. And because everyone was learning Rashi, he felt, let me explain Rashi to the people learning Rashi every week. The famous Mizrahi, Sephardi Rabbi, Eliel Mizrahi, had already written a commentary to Rashi. And the truth is, this would be an amazing lecture if anybody's ever interested in the history of the commentaries to a commentary, which in English are called super commentaries. Today, we have commentaries to the commentaries of the commentary. So those are the super commentaries. Rashi's got comments to him, but today you can buy a number of works that explain the Gur Aryeh, who was explaining Rashi. You got that? So it's an ongoing thing. There's never an end. What's interesting is that the Hasidim had a tradition that once all the names of Sfarim run out, Mashiach would come. And lo and behold, there was the Shulchan Aruch, and then someone came along and called it the Aruch HaShulchan. And suddenly the flipping of names created a chaos, and therefore who knows what would be going on? So he writes this commentary, puts his name out there. It's a fabulous commentary, by the way, very lucid, very clear. Every Rashi is analyzed going back to the source, answering any criticism that was leveled against Rashi. But being a rabbi, especially in this part of the world, exposed the Maharal to a number of issues in the community that he became very passionate about. It's great when you have rabbis who look at an issue in their community and they're not afraid to talk about it. I'll throw it out there. I would be impressed if anyone knows the issue of Nadlerism. Like the name Nadler. Have you heard of Nadlerism? That's what they call it. In fact, if you look at the literature, you see Nadler. What are they talking about? Nadlerism is another way of saying Lashon Hara. When people began to question other people's pedigree and their yichus and began spreading rumors and ruined shidduchim big time, and this was through parts of Poland, Czechoslovakia, and some great people had their names smeared. Because these people were talking, and 99% of the time, of course, these stories were not true. The Maharal sits down, and in each community, eventually when it comes to Prague, the first drasha that he makes in the great shul in Prague is about this issue of Nadlerism. Publishes this drasha. What's interesting is this issue had already existed. Many poskim were questioned about it, but no one got up in public and said this is not something that any one of us should do. Lashon Hara is forbidden, and please do not speak of other people, especially if you're out to ruin their business or stuff like that. The other issue that the Maharal was bothered by was the system of education in this part of the world. By now, everyone was basically learning Gemara. Women's education was not really an issue. It's not even on the table. It's a different world. But no one is learning what the Mishnah Pirkei Avot says. You remember the Mishnah Pirkei Avot? Ben Chamei Shanim Lemikra. Until when? Until Eser, when you begin to learn Mishnah. Until 15, when you begin to learn Gemara. So said the Maharal, if the rabbis gave us a particular curriculum, why is nobody following it? I mean, look at schools today, anywhere in the world, especially boys' schools. And in which grade, let's put it that way, does Gemara start? Oh, you started in 6th grade. We start Gemara in 5th grade. Oh, you started in 5th grade. We started in kindergarten. We'll learn Gemara from birth. I mean, schools do that, and they pride themselves how early they expose students to it. The Maharal said no, tried with some of the students to actually establish a educational system. I should tell you, it did very not so well. He tried. At the end of the day, Gemara still. Today, actually, in Israel, there are a number of people who have taken on this idea of trying to follow this. And it's working very well. When you take a student, like a child, and for 5 years, all you teach them is Tanakh, and they have a solid basis of Tanakh. For the next 5 years, teach them only Mishnah, where they cover all 6 Sidarim, and now empowered with the Mishnah. Now start learning Gemara. Now when the Gemara quotes a pasuk, they'll know what the pasuk means. When the Gemara quotes, obviously, a Mishnah, somewhere else, not what you're learning, no, that's the Mishnah over there, and you know what it means. It has a whole different method of meaning. The Maharal begins to develop his system of philosophy. Brilliant as he was, and for those of you who study Maharal, if you just study like one piece of Maharal and not all of it, you do not understand the Maharal. It's the type of work which only makes sense if you read all of it. To him, all of Chazal, all of it, has meaning. Every single word of stories in the Gemara, the Haggadah, has to have meaning. And when you find some kind of a story in the Gemara that makes no sense, there's always a deeper meaning. and it's fabulous. The Jewish people are in this world to fulfill our mission. Once we fulfill our mission, we will leave our natural state, so to say, of Galut, and become not just the Or LaGoyim, but will make this world the way it should be. Until that happens, we will be in a state of exile. Now, the beauty of the Maharal is he was deeply, deeply steeped into Kabbalah, but if you read his works, you'd never know that. Not once does he mention Kabbalah or the sources, but if you understand what he's saying, he totally comes with the system of Kabbalah. He was what many people call him, a Nistar Balashon Niglet. He spoke with simple words that everyone understood, but those words really came from the Kabbalah system. Writes a commentary to the Gemara, to the stories, called Hidushei Agadot. Writes an entire sefer about the story of Purim. Writes a different one about the Yom Tov of Hanukkah. He's developing a system. Then he decides to write a work called the Or HaGolah. And the purpose of this entire work is to show the depth of the words of the rabbis in the Torah. On purpose, he would pick some of the strangest Agadot and explain them to show you that Lo Davar Reiku, the words of the rabbis, even when they're telling stories, are not empty. There's great depth here. He is able to connect stories. Many times things which we think are to be taken literally, he says, no, this story is not to be taken literally. It's a metaphor for this, or it's a metaphor for that. And he did have a little bit of an issue with the Shulchan Aruch, which had just appeared in his lifetime. How did Rabbi Yosef Karo decide to write a constitution for the Jewish people all by himself? Who's ever heard of that before? The Rabbi got in trouble for it. I think halacha is still an open issue. I don't agree with everything Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote. And therefore I think it's a wonderful something, but it's not the final word. And that is, by the way, the feeling of most Chachamim at the time Shulchan Aruch appeared. 100 years hence, everyone loved it. But its initial arrival was received with that. Okay. Let's say goodbye to the Maharal for a couple of minutes, and let's look at our Azariah Deros. You can guess by his name. Where is he from? He said from Italy. Can you guess what his Hebrew name was? Italian Jews, like the Jews of Provence, if you remember, always tried to, had a real Hebrew name. But then they took their Hebrew name and made it into an Italian name. He was known as Azariah ben Moshe de Rossi min ha'adumim. What does Rossi mean? Red. Now, what does min ha'adumim mean? His family claimed residency in Italy from the time of Titus. So like from the old Edomim that actually brought him to this part of the world. He was born in the city of Mantua, where eventually later on his book will be published. His father was a banker, didn't do so well, sometimes there was poverty in the home. And just like the Maharal, with one difference though. He gets his wonderful Jewish education, and at 13, he is let loose. Let loose begins, go into a library, and literally devour all the books. And I mean, all the books. I made a list, and it's partial. I only copied down things I know. I left out names I've never heard of. So here's who he quotes from. Plato. Okay. Maharal was not learning Plato. Xenophon, Homer, Herodotus, Pliny, Quintilian, Augustine. Now Augustine, anybody remember him? He's got a saint in front of his name. We're not talking about a church father. So he read the church father, read Eusebius, also a church father, interestingly, is adored. Dante, and the famous Pico della Mirandola. He has a great memory. He learned about 12 languages, which of course include Greek, Latin, Italian, whatever else you want to throw in besides the Hebrew and the Aramaic. He knows it all. He loves to sit and learn and sit and learn. He's not planning to teach. He's not planning to write. He has to get married. Okay, I'll get married. He gets married. His marriage is okay and wonderful, but his love is in books. And he keeps on reading more books and more books and more books. And suddenly, towards the end of his life, literally, in 1570, he finds himself with his family at this point living in the city of Ferrara, northern Italy. And if you have studied the history of earthquakes, anybody like an earthquake expert? 1570 earthquake in Ferrara made the record books until today. It was some earthquake. It actually lasted in super intensity for a year. Over 2,000 major aftershocks. It lasted with minor aftershocks for 4 years. Constant, okay, just another one that people got used to it. It destroyed the city. In 1570, Ferrara had 32,000 people living in there, 2,000 Jews. The ruler, whose name I don't remember, Alfonso maybe the second, or something like that, was very good to the Jews. He was good to everybody. And when this earthquake happens, Zari de Rossi and his wife are living in this home. Their daughter, who's married, lived on the second floor. They were on the top floor. It starts to shake. He runs down to basement, basically, to the lowest point. The city basically gets destroyed. Close to 200 people die. And he, totally afraid, for 11 days, they're not moving. I don't know what provisions they had, but for 11 days they stay in there. And he basically says, look, if I survive this, I will try to take all my thoughts, all my learning, and write a book. I mean, I want to thank Hashem for the fact that He's saved my life and my family. That it destroyed major buildings. The city of Ferrara did not recover until the 19th century. Really just because of war. So, what happens is the following. He's got in his mind to write a book. At the same time, though, he can't live in this broken house, so they move outside of Ferrara. They rent a house there. There, he meets a Christian scholar who says to him, you know, I know you, I've seen you in the libraries, you're reading everything. Do you know, I'll have to explain this, do you know, is there available a Hebrew translation of the letter of Aristeas? Okay, for 1,600 points on, have you heard of the letter of Aristeas? Okay, so now let me step back. Everyone in this room, I think, knows the Apocrypha, the Jewish Apocrypha. So we have Tanakh, and then we have the Sfarim Chitzonim. During Bai Cheni, a large collection of books written by Jews, very important books, which no longer are in a period of prophecy, so they can't enter Tanakh. So we call them Sfarim Chitzonim as far as Tanakh is concerned. But these are great books. Some are historical books, some are wisdom books like the book of Ben Sira, which you might have heard about. Historical books like the books of Maccabees 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. One of these books is a fascinating book called the Letter of Aristeas. The Letter of Aristeas is a letter that describes a very famous mission initiated by Ptolemy II Philadelphus, who built a great library in Alexandria of Egypt, who heard that the Jewish people have a book called the Torah. But the book is in Hebrew. How in the world can we take this book and put it into a great library in Alexandria? It needs to be translated. And the rest of the story you all know. The story is in the Gemara, it's in the Yerushalmi, it's in the Midrashim. It's in this letter. The letter of Aristotle's describes that very famous idea of 72 people, not knowing for what purpose, they were taken to Alexandria, put into different rooms, and they were told to translate the Torah of Moses, their leader, and a miracle occurs. They all translated it identically, maybe this is some mistranslation. Survived in the Apocrypha in Greek. There's no Hebrew version of it. The Apocrypha only survived in Greek. The church, the Catholic Church, basically took these books and allowed them to survive. Otherwise, they would not even be around today. So, Azariah, tell me, is there a Hebrew translation? And Azariah says, no, for sure there isn't. You have obviously the Apocrypha and all this. He says, but you know what? Give me a couple of days. And Azariah the Rossi sits down and translates the letter of Aristeas into Hebrew for a Christian scholar. Did you get that? Okay, they read Hebrew in those days. And this is the beginning of his writing. So if you can make it out, it's a little bit tiny on the bottom there. But if you look at Azariah the Rossi there, you might see it. It's called the Orenayim, the enlightenment of the eyes, and it has 3 books in it. What are the 3 books? Called Elohim, an entire book describing the earthquake in Ferrara. Then this Hadrat Zakenim, which is about the translation of Torah into Greek and the letter of Aristeas, and translated all the history of it. And then his most important book. So what's his most important book for a second? You can go to the next page. Part of Me'or Einayim, its 3rd part. It's a huge book, by the way. And all of it is available on Hebrew books for downloading, and they're ready to have over 600 pieces of paper. Sefer Me'or Einayim, Pelik Hamishi, Mechamish Halakim, Hamechuna Yimei Olam. So I'll stop right here for a second. So what did he do in this book? He writes about the earthquake, great. But in writing the history of how Torah was translated into Greek, went to Philo. Anybody? Say hello to Philo, my favorite person. This is probably the first modern Orthodox Jew, or Philo. Philo lives in Alexandria in Egypt in the 1st century, at the same time of Shammai and Hillel, and the other fellow who started a different religion. And Philo, which they call the chief rabbi of Alexandria in Egypt, is an observant Jew, who wrote literally 50 books. All of them amazing books. He wrote them in Greek. Wrote a commentary to Bereshit, that survived. Commentary to Shemot, that survived. A book on the life of Abraham, a book on the life of Moshe. Then he wrote 2, it's come down to us into 2. A book in English translated from the Greek about the special laws. It's Philo taking all the mitzvot in Torah and trying to give them a reason. A very difficult book. To this day, no one really has explained it properly. But no one heard about Philo. Azariah de Rossi, by reading all this stuff that he read, church fathers quoted Philo. Suddenly, wait a second, says Azariah de Rossi. This is one of our people. His Hebrew name was, can you guess? Yedidia. Oh, right, the 100 points for that. Yedidia. An amazing Jew who lives in Alexandria, who teaches Torah, who, by the way, just to show you how things have changed, in one of his books he says, you know, there are different types of Jews here in Alexandria. There are those who, only come to Shul Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. This is 1st century. Hasn't changed, right? But Philo, no one heard of him. Azariah discovers him through the church fathers who used Philo and says, fellow Jews, where have you been? This is one of ours. This stuff is fabulous. Read Philo. And it's almost like at this point the church didn't want Philo anymore. Okay? They discovered our secrets. We were getting our stuff from Philo. By the way, the entire idea of monasticism, or the idea of separating, is to follow the scribe, the Essenes, like Josephus did, and a special group of Jews who lived in Alexandria, the Therapeutic, who did not get married. So the entire notion of being celibate came from Philo, describing these groups who lived in this time period. But now suddenly, that's great, it's wonderful. So he puts Philo out there. He takes the Septuagint, puts it out there. We've heard of the Septuagint, but how many Jews decided, or actually to read it? You'd have to know Greek. And through all this, suddenly, here comes the problem. So look again at this page right here. And what is it that he's doing in this part? Bo yifaer ki hayu me'az hatalot shonot. L'seder zmanim. I'm going to show you that what we call chronology is kind of interesting. You should know that we didn't always count from the year of creation, but our calendars were from Yetziat Mitzrayim, year 1, year 2, until we hit the building of the Ben HaMikdash. Then we have the second calendar called Binyan Habayit. And then it's destroyed, and then we have year 1 of the Qurban, and then year 2 of the Qurban, and then suddenly Greek kings came along, so we had a different calendar. And at some point we have another calendar. And he discovered something shocking. Zari de Rossi. If you look at the next paragraph, you'll basically say, look, many dates are in Torah, from beginning of the world until pretty much the destruction of Vayit Rishon. Those are dates that are not to be argued with. But after that, he did something interesting. He took events and the dates that the rabbis gave us. Now, the rabbis give us dates, sometimes in the Gemara, but the source of all the dates of events past the Qurban of Vayit Rishon come from the Tanaitic work called Seder Olam. Seder Olam tells us, year this and this happened, year this and this happened. And he takes the events described in Seder Olam in the dates, the Jewish chronology, and he compares it with the chronology of Persian, Greeks. Any source that dated the same event. He found something fascinating. All the events match until you hit the Persian period. And the Persian period, whoa. I'm sure all of you in this room have heard of the missing years, where, what is the year of creation this year? 57, 577, 8. Okay, Azari de Rossi says no. It's a mistake. It's off. Easily by 160 some years. That means we've just add 160 some years, and for those of you who like, Mashiach's coming years, 6,000, we're almost here. But before he published his book, he began to tell people, my book's coming out soon. And here's what I'm going to be saying in this book. One of them, I'm spending over 20 chapters to prove, without a doubt, the way he put it, that dates that we use for Brian Ha'olam are really incorrect. And I'll prove it from here, I'll prove it from here, I'll prove it from here. And it's kind of pretty clear when you learn Tanakh that the Persian period was not like 40 or 50 some years. Just look at the names of the Persian kings and add it up, clearly they're around for about 200 years. You can see that. Which also, by the way, makes, okay, elementary Jewish education, question number 1, Vayit Rishon, how many years did it stand for? 400 and...
420.
10. Vayit Sheni, 420. Now, going to this accounting, Vayit Sheni is around for about 600 years. Look at the conventional calendar of the world. Okay, you can see this in a second. If you've never even met Azari de Rossi, Open up any book of history, Jewish history. What is the date given for the Qurban of Bayit Rishon? Bayit Rishon. 5 what? 5, who said that? Perfect, all right. 586, and then just take away the 7 years of Melech Babel. So, Bayit Sheni is built when? It's in the BCEs. Come all the way to 70, that's close to 600 years. You just see it right there. Just look at the dates that people give without all this. Oh, wait a second. Rumor spreads that, well, did we make a mistake? Every little ketubah, every get that was written, every document has the wrong date on it. We are in deep trouble. So much so that some who are ignorant suddenly say, oh my goodness, everybody's a monster. Of course, the answer is no. If you know a little bit, that's why. What is it that we always write in every single ghetto to document? We have those few words, Liminyan, Shanu, Monenkan, or to whatever we think is right, so it never matters really. But people didn't know that. And suddenly they come to him and say, you can't write this in the book. And by the way, here are some of the arguments against it. So the book is being printed, and every Monday and Thursday, Azariah runs to the printer a month and says, stop. Give me back this page, that page, I have to add something. Someone asked me a question. Sometimes he says, who? About what? Here's an answer. So this book is evolving, and the printer was not very happy. At some point, Azariah says, you know what? I'm just going to print it. And if anybody's arguing with me, I'll write another book. And the book gets printed. And as they say, Yiddish often bad. It was not pleasant. The rabbis of Italy issued the following proclamation. We present here the text of an interesting proclamation. Let the fear of God be upon you. Word has been heard that the book of Rabbi Azariah de Rossi, published recently, entitled Me'orei Naim, with the parts Kol Elokim Hadratza Kenim and Rebina. Some of the chapters of part 3 about the calendar were prepared long ago. And lo, since all of it is full of new explanations and interpretations which our holy ancestors never imagined in their lives, the undersigned scholars of every city in the whole community of Italy have agreed that no person of any congregation in our court, meaning a Beth, or anyone who tremble at their words may have this composition in their possession, either in whole or in part, or study it unless they have received full permission in writing from the rabbis of their city. It will go hard on those who violate the words of the sages, and well it would be by those who obey, and blessing be upon those people. And suddenly this book, just like the Rambam's book, is placed in the Chayil. Word 1557. Word reaches Rabbi Yosef Karo in Tzfat, who at this point was 86 years old, that someone in Italy had written a book claiming that the rabbis made a mistake in their calendar. And Riyad HaOlam dates are wrong. Rabbi Yosef Karo already old, which is kind of interesting, by the way, because Azariah de Rossi collected a tremendous amount of money for the publication of Rabbi Yosef Karo commentary to the Rambam Kesef. But okay, that was his good deed, going as a good deed, because what happens is interesting. He's too old to get involved, so he tells one of his students, the famous Elisha Galiko, go ahead, draw up a cherem, and I'll sign it. Some of the rabbis begin to sign it, standing up Rabbi Yosef Karo drawings. Literally on the day before he was supposed to sign it, and that cherem never came. So if you now go to the next page, here is the Maral's work, speaking of the wonderful, beautiful words of the rabbis in the Haggadah and the Talmud. And you see where the pen mark is there? Listen to what he says. My book is over. I should have finished my book here, but suddenly I received Sefer Echad, a book, one of our own wrote this book, and they brought this book to me. They said to me, because when I first saw the book, wow, what a great book. It talks about such important things. This is for me. But, as I read the books, I was ready to take Kriya. Nikara levavi v'nishpach ruchi b'kirbi v'amarti oy vei l'einai shekach ra'u v'oy la'azneinu shekach shomim barim ka'ile. Arur yehei hayom asher bo nigla v'nira'im parmei. Cursed be the day. Ish asher lo yada lahavin devrei chachamim. Like, what was he thinking? Af echad midvareim aktanim v'kol shtinach dolim. This person does not understand how to study the words of the rabbis. Because what did Azariah the Rossi do? And you've seen this many times. In fact, you will see the example on the next page. You're learning a story in the Gemara, and then you learn the exact same story in a midrash. And what will inadvertently happen? The story is different. For example, every story in the Bible about Onkelos Hager. Remember Onkelos Hager? Translated Torah into Aramaic. Every story, exact same story, appears in the Yerushalmi, but there the name is Achilas Hager. Now, big deal, Onkelos Achilas, the Zelda Zah. Except Achilas was a different Jew who translated Torah into Greek. In addition to the Septuagint, we still possess today not his full translation, but the translation of Torah of Achilas. It was done, if you remember, under the guidance of the great Tanaim, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Ishmael, and Rabbi Gamliel. So now, what happened here? Did the rabbis make a mistake? Did they confuse the names? Did they not know who he is? And that caused a whole different scholarship issue. Some of the stories we'll find in the Bavli about Alexander the Great are found in the Yerushalmi about Hadrian. Do they know their history? Are rabbis supposed to know history, or are they supposed to know only halakha? Jump for a second to a modern period. You remember clearly, not that long ago, a fellow saying, and many of us, and I include myself in that group, said the rabbis did not have to know medicine and science. They knew the science of their day, but do they know the science of today? Are they infallible? Now, the Goanim already said no, but the Maharal is not willing to accept that. You don't know how to study the Brei Chachamim. And the Maharal vehemently, for the rest of this entire book, attacked Azariah the Rossi step by step. Taking the actual stories that he quoted and showing you missed the point. Now, it is true. Sometimes there's a mistake in a name. And what do we do when there's a mistake? We say, Hachi Garcina. Okay, you got the real one. Cross off the name, put in the right name. But that's the way it's done. Don't tell me that the rabbis didn't know. Maybe they were different traditions. Maybe something happened with Hadrian, happened again, or sorry, with Alexander, and it happened again hundreds of years later with Hadrian. How do you know? The words of our rabbis are not empty, says the Rabbi. And if you don't understand how to study them, you've missed their point. And this machloket begins to break. So, let me throw it in here for a second. In our great Jewish world, in the last 25, even 30 years, how many times has a book appeared where someone made a claim based on other sources and questioned the knowledge of the rabbis, whether in science or in medicine or in history. And what was the response? Like that. Aaron burned the book. And that is again an issue, notice, which has never been resolved. And it will not be resolved. How many schools are there today which will not teach secular studies, Torah only? And how many schools are the opposite? We teach Torah and we're not afraid of some of those things. It's not resolved yet. Every single one of these types of arguments now in the Jewish world, there will not be a consensus until there's a Sanhedrin. So really what this is, the Maral was super influenced by the Kuzari. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's teachings were totally taken over by the Maral, who opened them up even more. Almost every idea in the Kuzari about the destiny of the Jewish people, the chosenness of the Jewish people, the centrality of the land of Israel, are things the Maral internalized, refined even more, clarified more, and made our mission statement so much more important. So, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi and the Rambam did not ever get to fight face to face. But that ideology of the Rambam, which Azariah the Rossi inherits, which is do not be afraid of the truth, no matter where it comes from. In this time period, late 1500s, early 1600s, divided communities again. The book was banned. No one published the book until you know when? Until the Maskilim of the Reform movement came along and said, yeah, remember that guy? He's our hero. So let's revive Azariah the Rossi and bring him back. And in 1790 something, somewhere in Germany, they published the book. And lo and behold, other great rabbis. Some without ever saying who they're quoting. That's who they're quoting. Rabbi Yaakov Emden absolutely did not like this book. He reversed its title from Or Einayim to Cheshkat Einayim. It darkened our Hoshe, especially about the dates. Many great rabbis, including our time period, were faced with this. What do you do? Rabbi Schwab of the German community took this issue so seriously that in his youth he wrote a book about this, and he was convinced that Azariah the Rossi was right. And he traveled to the great rabbis in this country to ask them, what is this? Rabbi Kotler, and basically they said, okay, whatever. Fast forward to the end of his life, when it became the famous Rabbi Schwab, he was asked, should we republish all your writings and include this little volume where you wrote about the missing years? And he said, yeah, but I want to write an addendum. And he wrote, this is what I wrote in my youth. Now that I'm a drop older and wiser, maybe it is much better to have a not ha'amim. And at the end of the day, does it really make a difference what the chronology is? But throw out names of rabbis, many will, under the table, have this book, and they read it and they quoted it. Amongst them are the famous Bidah, who quotes Divnei Or Einayim. The most famous one in recent time period, quotes him extensively in the early part of his life, but sometimes you have no idea. Katuv b'sefer Memayim, okay, well, what is it? You go figure it out. Without you, what his name? And it's him. And it's Rabbi studied this book and knew this book very well. Today, I don't think it's an issue anymore. 99% of people will quote the book. Even ArtScroll will mention this book. If you look at the Chabad website, you read it, you don't even begin to get a whiff of the entire. It's like, oh, by the way, there's some kind of a controversy about this work, okay, but It's like out there. But Azariah the Rossi was the first Chacham who really used the critical eye and began to develop some system that allowed us to be like very sensitive to history, to correct dating, and how to take outside sources and use them in a way we would understand our sources. Because we did not grow up in a vacuum by ourselves. We always interacted with different cultures, and they sometimes took notice of us, and they wrote about us. Sometimes they complement each other, sometimes questions are raised, and as a believing Jew, there should be nothing that we are challenged. If you believe Torah at the end of the day is a Torah and Emet, then yeah, there will be issues, but we'll figure it out. Others think, absolutely not. Don't even go there. Don't think about it. Let's protect it. These are two attitudes which still, again, have not been solved. And I don't know if they'll ever be solved. There's always someone who has a very different point of view. Now, with Hashem's help, next week, it's the Gaon of Vilna versus the Baal Shem Tov. And somehow, we'll connect the two of us. And have an amazing week.